Hey there, guys. My name is Brandon, aka Suns Geek, and if it has to do with Phoenix Suns, I'm going to make a video about it. The Phoenix Suns have won their first NBA Finals game in 28 years. Let me repeat that. The Suns have won their first Finals game in 28 years. I think I just need a moment to celebrate. I have a small shot of vodka in here mixed with a little bit of Sprite. And I think the Suns just deserve a little bit of celebration. But I also do have my water here. And before we get started, I'm here with my guest, Super Mario Hoops, who is helping me going to break down this NBA Finals game. So Super Mario Hoops, cheers to you, man. And cheers to the Phoenix Suns and this awesome
Cheers.
Suns class. Cheers.
My water's pretty much empty, but yeah.
Woo! I drank a little bit during the game, not too much, but I think that was necessary. So, Super Mario Hoops, man, how you doing? You've been on this channel once before. You and I recently just did a collab for your channel, which that's coming out soon. So, tell the people how you're doing, man. Let us know where they can find you, and just how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Had a pretty long day today, but obviously got back in time to watch the Suns.
Yes, sir.
Game 1, which was pretty crazy. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good. If you guys don't know, I'm a Bulls fan, really. So, if the Suns do win this series, I can say, the last time they lost in the finals was to us. No. But yeah, you guys can find me at what my name, I believe, shows on the screen, Super Mario Hoops 24 on YouTube. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Like Suns Geek said, we did a video that's going to come out pretty soon. Probably will be the next video on my channel in like 2 days. I think I'm going to release it before game 2. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
I'll make sure to add your information to the description box down below. We might be joined by my friend Hitman X. Some of you guys might remember him from the last live stream. He should be joining us. If not, I'm sure he's going to join us in future live streams. So the Phoenix Suns, they won. And, not to sound too cocky or too overconfident, but after they went on that 20-point lead, I didn't really feel threatened. There were a few runs here and there where it kind of seemed like the Bucks were climbing their way back into it. But from the jump, I felt like the Suns were just focused. Devin Booker just had this look on his face. They basically just killed the Bucks with the mid-range and the pick and roll. So Super Mario Hoops, just right off the back, just to get things started, what were your just takeaways from this game, since we're fresh from game 1? What were your takeaways?
Well, I think one of my takeaways is, the Suns led for most of the game, but I think the first 6 or so minutes was the Bucks' highest point of the game.
Right.
And it's like when they built that early lead. But even then, like, you could hear the commentators even saying, like, they're switching everything defensively. They're just going to expose, guys like Brook Lopez who can't really move their feet. They don't really have that lateral quickness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what they did a lot. And obviously it helped that Devin Booker went off in the first quarter, while Chris Paul, he was still struggling. Obviously, this is his first taste of the NBA Finals, so maybe some nerves were kicking in.
I think the Suns had a little nerves here and there, but that's okay.
Yeah, and then, after that, like, Chris Paul was just, like, Chris Paul. Like, exactly. The rest of the game, second and third quarter combined for, 27 points in those two. And that's when they built, the lead extended to, as high as 20 or something. So, and yeah, like you said, the Bucks, they made some runs. Chris Middleton was solid. Lopez was solid offensively. Giannis will probably be more aggressive next game because this is his first game back. But Drew Holiday struggled. You know my thoughts on Drew Holiday. And just their bench. Like I was looking at Twitter before this. Some of the Bucks fans were saying, like, we have about 5 or 6 playable people. But then you look at, like, the Suns on the bench, they got Cameron Payne, they got Cam Johnson, Torrey Craig. They just have more options, I think, and they also have better coaching. So it looks pretty promising right now for the Phoenix Suns.
I I have lots of thoughts about Cameron Johnson, but before we talk about Cameron Johnson, I know that Hitman X is probably on a time limit, so I'm going to bring in my man Hitman X on the show. Once again, he was on the show before. You guys loved him. Hitman X, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm doing good. I appreciate any and all time that you're able to give us. I don't know how much time you have, but I just asked Super Mario Hoops, my guest here. I asked him, what were just your takeaways from the first Phoenix Suns finals win in 28 years? What are your just quick takeaways?
Well, first of all, man, I like the way going into this game. I had concerns about how Milwaukee was going to defend our pick and roll because if you know, they give up a lot of mid-range shots with that Trae Young floater and just the way they got to the mid-range so easily on the Bucks. I figured we'll have even more success. And starting off the game, that was the exact game plan we went to. At first, it looked like they was going to take that away and give us Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder. But once they started taking those options away, you start seeing Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton getting those switches and those mismatches that that we look for. So
exactly.
I think it was a great game plan for Monty Williams going out and doing what we do best. Eventually, the Milwaukee Bucks, they came and with Giannis at the 5, that was something I was really concerned about. I was hoping they didn't throw Giannis at the 5, but that gave them a little bit of success to cut the lead down to 9? What was it, 9 or 7?
Yeah,
or
they came back in this game. I was
it was like 7 at one point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was mainly because Giannis, once they moved him to the 5, they were able to switch everything. And I felt like Monty Williams, once again, his game plan helped save us in this series because we started going at Pat Connaughton and Brent Forbes and just finding any other mismatch we could find instead of going at, you're right, Brook Lopez. He was pretty much ineffective at one point. Once we kept going at him and we had success going at him, I mean, it was nothing they could do about that. So hats off to the Phoenix Suns, but we just did what we were supposed to do. It's just one game, but I'm not going to lie, it feels good to get this one game, man. It's been a long time. Man, a lot of people haven't even been born to see a Phoenix Suns finals win, so hey, man, I'm happy, man. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Exactly, man. It's just full of happiness right now, man. It's just so good. And I mean, I agree with everything both of you guys said. This was just a great game, and I think the Suns really did take advantage of the Bucks in a lot of different areas. We're going to talk about Cam Johnson later, but it was really Chris Paul and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. They absolutely dominated. And speaking of DeAndre Ayton, I think he's the first player I saw on the broadcast since Tim Duncan to have over 15 points, over 15 rebounds in his NBA Finals debut since Tim Duncan. And
Tim Duncan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah. And look, Devin Booker didn't shoot the greatest tonight, but if he wasn't in this game, I don't know if we would have won, to be honest. I thought he was really good. Chris Paul absolutely took over in the third quarter. This was kind of at first in the first half, kind of a points in the paint battle. I thought both teams were scrappy, few mistakes here and there, but it was points in the paint battle. At first, I don't know what both teams ended shooting threes tonight, but at first, at halftime, both teams only had 5 threes made each. So at the end of the night, the Bucks, they eventually started hitting the 3-ball. They hit 16 threes. The Suns hit 11 threes. And the Bucks are a scary team when they can hit the 3-ball. Yeah, remember, I think they're the only team in NBA history that has 29 threes. So really, I guess, do you think, I think someone mentioned it earlier, we all know Giannis will be more aggressive. I think you brought that up, Super Mario Hoops. Really, what can the Bucks do in game 2 to respond? I'll start with you, Super Mario. What do you think?
Well, I mean, what Hitman said earlier, I think when they put Giannis at the 5 and they were able to switch just about everything, that was probably the best option for them. And you've seen people like Rudy Gobert when he was, whether it was against the Clippers in the second round, whether it was against the Warriors in years past, where they pretty much make him a non-factor. You've seen it with Enes Kanter in the playoffs where he can't really defend that. And I think it's not that Brook Lopez can't defend, because remember,
he's big. He's a big guy.
And he has some rim protecting capabilities, but he's just not mobile,
Right. He is older too, you know.
And that's another factor too. But if you have Giannis out there, and I mean Middleton, solid defender, Drew Holiday, solid defender.
They can play defense. They're a great defensive team.
And I think that's the move. I think the thing that makes it work on Phoenix's end is, DeAndre Ayton. You look at guys like Gobert. He might not be the rim protector he is, but he's a much more athletic and probably a quicker player than he is. So he's at least more capable of handling a switch per se, if it's like extended to the free throw line or around the perimeter.
Yeah. Hitman X, do you have any thoughts on like what the Bucks are going to do in game 2? Because I think this is going to be a long series. I don't think the Suns are going to win. I mean, the cocky side of me is going to say Suns in 4, but realistically, I think Suns in 6. So I guess what I'm asking is like, do you think the Bucks? Not do you think? What will the Bucks do to respond in game 2?
I think a healthy dose of trapping. Maybe they'll run to a zone.
We're bad with zone defenses too. We're bad.
Right. Yeah, it may throw that at us game 2 from the start.
Giannis might be more aggressive.
Right, Giannis. I mean, even a more aggressive Giannis, I'm not too concerned about that because I feel like if Giannis is aggressive, that takes Chris Middleton out of his game. So. Right. DeAndre Ayton's done a great job at defending without fouling. I think he had 3 fouls today. Especially guarding somebody like Giannis.
I'm sorry, 5 fouls and 3 turnovers.
Oh no, never mind. Well, he still did a great job. He picked that 3rd foul up, I think, in mid 4th quarter or something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not too bad. You can't ask much more from DeAndre Ayton. So all in all, I mean, I feel like the Bucks gonna make some.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was talking about Giannis. My fault. I'll shut up.
Okay. I ain't know, but like I said, minor adjustments. There's not too much they can do as far as personnel wise, because even if you put Giannis at the 5, and you try to come out like that, you're taking your best big man out of the equation, and that's playing right in our hands because they don't have a DeAndre Ayton on their team. So
exactly,
that's the benefit of having a DeAndre Ayton, somebody who's so versatile. Not only offensively, but defensively. Whenever a team goes small on us, we can still benefit from having DeAndre Ayton on the floor.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm having some okay, we're good. Sorry, my computer's acting up. It's funny. I want to kind of talk about this for a minute. I was doing a collab with Super Mario Hoops on his channel, and he asked me, who do you think the Suns' biggest X factor is going into the finals? And I told him, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, I think it's Mikal Bridges, because we all know that Mikal Bridges, when he gets hot offensively, the Suns are hard to stop. But I'm like, the Suns have so many X factors. And Super Mario Hoops, you brought this up. Like, sure, the Bucks have a pretty good bench. I didn't know Bryn Forbes was that good of a 3-point shooter until tonight. But I'm like, the Suns got guys just chilling on their bench that haven't played in forever. And I'm like, we are so loaded. So I'm like, if our X factors like Cameron Johnson, for example, can step up, I'm like, the Suns are going to be really hard to beat. And we're 3 wins away from our first NBA championship. I don't really know where I was going with that rant, but it's just exciting, man. In my opinion, the Bucks just need a full team effort. Because I do know that, Bobby Portis was playing pretty well for them, I think, around the Eastern Conference Finals. And, Pat Connaughton played 28 minutes tonight. He only had 8 points. It was basically like the Bucks starters in a way versus the entire Suns team. And again, Cameron Johnson was huge. I can't say that enough. Jay Crowder, though, you guys know Jay Crowder. I'm going to explain this to you, but we're going to tell the fans this. He had 1 point tonight, but he's a streaky guy. I mean, he had 33 minutes. You guys might have to fill me in on what he did defensively tonight, but we all know when Jay Crowder can go off, Jay Crowder can go off. Do you guys have any thoughts on what you saw from Jay Crowder tonight?
I mean, you kind of touched on it. He's a pretty streaky player.
When he misses, it's pretty noticeable.
Yeah, like, there's guys in history like Nick Young or Marcus Morris, or J.R. Smith, I think, is probably one of the biggest examples of one, where it's like, I don't know if you could consider really a bonus because you still expect them to play so well and contribute in so many ways. But it's like you kind of have to predict that these games are coming.
Right. Exactly. But in the Lakers series, man, he was horrible in the Lakers series, especially from 3. And then he snapped out of it, man.
And it's good, though, that it happens, in a game like today where they're still able to get the job done. So maybe next game he goes crazy and, maybe they need that many. Like, say he goes for 20 and they need it. So I don't know. I think it's a good thing that it at least happens today as opposed to a game where they lose by like 1 or 2. Because then it's like, if you would have just made one more shot,
Exactly. Hitman X, what did you see from Jay Crowder tonight?
Oh, I seen 2020 NBA Finals, Jay Crowder. Knock on wood, man.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. I mean, hopefully this isn't a trend, man. But I'm not too concerned about Jay Crowder. Had we lost, then maybe you're looking at Jay Crowder's stat line. Like,
and we'd be having a whole different conversation too.
Right. You having a different conversation if we lose. So it's good that we didn't really rely on Jay Crowder hitting his shots, even though he got a lot of good looks. Which says another thing. Like if he hits those shots, this game isn't nowhere close. There's no cut the lead down, but from 18-9, that doesn't happen if Jay Crowder's hitting his shots. So that's something I could fall back on and say, you know what, game 2 may be a different story if Jay Crowder hits his shots, because everybody else played exactly how we were expecting them to. I mean, I wanted a little bit more from Devin Booker, but all in all, I can't really critique this team. I mean, great game from this team. Hopefully we come in the game too playing a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, we won, and I'm kind of glad you brought up Devin Booker. I mean, 42 points tonight, and even though he shot 8 for 21 from the field, I mean, it was 27 points, and he was 10 for 10 from the free throw line. By the way, you guys, the Suns only missed 1 free throw tonight, which is absolutely insane. That's got to be some kind of finals record for the Suns. Booker just had this look on his face, man, and I just knew he wasn't going to let us lose, and his brother even tweeted out before game 6 or like after game 6 of the Western Conference Finals. He's like, yo, like, we're going to win this game and it's not even going to be close. And I think he had that same mentality tonight. There were a few times I think I saw a few nerves here and there from the Suns players, but a lot of the criticism from this team was like, the Suns have no playoff experience, blah, blah. And I'm like, I haven't seen that all playoffs long. It's been so fun. This team is just, it's like a storybook. Like, we're reading a book about the Suns' beautiful playoff run, and now we're in the NBA Finals, and Devin Booker's a huge part of it. And, in all fairness, Booker could be better, but I think that's actually a really good thing. Like, Booker had 27 points, and we still won the game, when we all know that Booker can go off for 40 or 50 any given night. Super Mario Hoops, what did you see from Devin Booker tonight, man?
I mean, I think he definitely set the tone early on, because a lot of the players, you could kind of see the jitters with a lot of these guys, because outside of Crowder last year, and it wasn't even like, I'm not trying to like belittle the bubble, but it wasn't like a real finals scene.
It's not the NBA Finals. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like realistically, none of these guys have played in NBA Finals with like a packed house, stuff like that. So, all these guys were struggling early on, and then he's the first one to come out and, start hitting his shots. And then I think that made it easier for guys like Chris Paul to step up, guys like DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. He started feeling himself like late third, early fourth quarter. So
he does that a lot too, Mikal Bridges. I noticed that
he had a lot of the big shots in the first 2 wins against the Clippers, I believe. So yeah, I mean, it's good day to be a Suns fan.
Shout out to my old friend Matt Boundy, who's in the chat. He says, yeah, Booker and Crowder could not hit from deep, but we won by 13. That's trouble for the Bucks. Exactly. And I do believe that they are going to make changes and be more aggressive. Hopefully they don't go to that zone, because I don't know how the Suns are going to play and react to that. But great game. Once again, you guys, I can't believe I've gone almost 20 minutes into the live stream without reminding you guys to Hulk smash the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. After the stream, go ahead, Hitman X. Go ahead.
I know. I was going to tell you, I got to head out, man.
Yeah,
I
go
appreciate
for it, man.
You for letting me on, though, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime. You're welcome back on, brother. I appreciate you, man.
No problem. Y'all say, man. Valley Boys salute, man.
Yes, sir. Valley Boys salute. Valley Boys. But that reminds me, too, like I said, after the show, I'll make sure to put the links in the description for my guest, Super Mario Hoops, and for Hitman X. Thank you so much, Hitman X, for being on the show. Always a good time with him on. And, just once again, you guys, Hulk smash the like button. And Cameron Johnson, man, I mentioned this in a recent video. He was kind of a unsung hero of the Western Conference Finals. Like, I'm not saying he was like the best player in the Western Conference Finals, but he was productive. And he's just playing with so much confidence and aggressiveness. Monty Williams said, and I quote, he told Cam Johnson this. He's like, you are a starter in this league. You just got to take it. You know, like, you got to drive to the basket more. Monty Williams said he's more than just a shooter. Chris Paul said it's a luxury to have a player like Cameron Johnson on this team. So I guess my little rant here is Super Mario Hoops. What have you seen from Cam Johnson, like, throughout the year, even last year? What did you see out of him from tonight? Like, he's a good player, man, and he thrived tonight. I thought he played really well.
Yeah, I mean, I told you, I think this was maybe in like February or March or something. I said it seems like every time I watch the Suns, both Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson seem like they just can't miss, especially from that opposite corner, which is, I think, one of his hot spots. Obviously, like in the playoffs, Mikal, he's had some ups and downs. He's had more ups, though, later in the games, of course, when it's mattered most. But Cam Johnson, like, he's been doing this all playoffs. And I think realistically, like, I don't want to put a ceiling on him because he's still, like, in his second year, I believe.
Yeah, second year. He was one of the older rookies when he was drafted, but, you know,
yeah,
he's still very young.
They compared him to like Aaron Gordon or something with their age,
right?
Which that's still crazy, but I mean, just the way that he's playing, I feel like he could be like you saw with the Spurs and how many championships they won. I wouldn't go like Tim Duncan. He's not going to be like a Tim Duncan necessarily, but I could see him maybe being like a Bruce Bowen. And I mean, he's got defensive capabilities.
He does. I've preached about his defense, man. I love Cam Johnson on defense.
And he's one of the better shooters on their team, one of the most consistent players, and he comes up big. You know, Bruce Bowen, he came up big against like the Pistons in 2005. Yep. So him, Robert Horry, I mean, that's another good one possibly. But I just think that he's always going to be one of those guys. It's like, oh, he's in the game, like, oh, we're good. You know, like he's not like the star or anything, right, but, you know, you can always count on him.
Let me tell you this, too. There was a small stretch where I think they started Cam Johnson, and he didn't play good, man. And Monty Williams, he knows when to pull guys out of the rotation. And I feel like in a good way, Monty Williams is really hard on his players. It's kind of like a tough love thing, and Monty Williams has even talked about that. And Cam Johnson, I know that he's actually a really brilliant guy. If you listen to him in interviews and stuff, I think he's got a great future in broadcasting after his long career, and hopefully he does have a long career. And but again, he was the unsung hero tonight. You know, like I'm looking at the box score, like 10 points in 21 minutes really isn't going to stand out, but it was just big time shots that he hit. I thought that just his hustle and effort was great, and sometimes that's all it is, man. Remember in that Lakers game in Game 5 when the Suns just didn't look like the Suns? Cam Johnson was the player of that game for the Suns because he seemed like he was the only player that wanted it out there in that Game 5. That was an unusual, strange game for the Suns, too. I think one of the biggest blown opportunities in Suns history, by the way. But, you know, that's in the past now. We're in the NBA Finals. So, yeah, and I want to bring up something that Roy, longtime supporter, been on this channel once before, says, Suns Geek, do you think Dario will return? I'll just say this. I actually didn't see what happened, but they ruled him out for Game 1, and that makes me nervous. But sometimes injuries look, you know, worse than they really are. I mean, look at Giannis. You know, I can't believe we haven't even really talked about Giannis's injury and how great he looked. We'll get to that in a minute. But do you think Dario's going to return? Did you see what happened to Dario? Do you got any thoughts on that?
I must say that, well, I did see like when he was like walking back and stuff.
Yeah,
I didn't really see what caused it.
Exactly. I didn't see it either.
It was weird. But I'm gonna say this: Dario Saric. I mean, he can go off like he went off. What was it? Was it Game 5 or Game 6?
Might have been Game 6. Yeah, he played pretty good game.
He hit I think like 2 threes in that game or something like that. So I mean, he's capable like providing a spark off the bench. But if I'm, you know, you or the rest of, you know, Suns Nation, I wouldn't be fretting, especially when the Bucks, like we were talking about before this, like they might have 5 or 6 playable guys. Brooke Lopez, who's been a starter for them all year, like he might not be playable in this series. Bobby Portis, maybe a little bit more to an extent, but again, it's kind of hard. And then, I mean, when they have Jeff Teague on their team,
your boy Jeff Teague.
I hate Jeff Teague. I cannot stand Jeff Teague. But yeah,
I'm sorry if I'm saying this name wrong, but Aiden, I hope I said that right, or Aden, says, do you think Dario's injury is a big impact? I'll say this, because Dario, honestly, all season has had a roller coaster of a season, mostly lows, unfortunately. He hasn't really been a big impact in the playoffs. Sure, he might have had a few good games here and there, but I will say this, Monty Williams likes to use Dario sometimes for size matchups, and you saw it. When Dario went out, who'd he bring in? My boy Frank Kaminsky. He brought him in, which wasn't, I don't know if that was a good or a bad thing. So I guess what I'm saying is if Dario is going to miss time, maybe that will be bad for the matchups purposes. Because sometimes, you know this, man, sometimes you just need a big body out there, you know? Even if that player sucks, like you just need a body out there. And I don't know where I was really going with that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully Dario's okay. So speaking of that, let's kind of transition to the Giannis thing. I don't know if he was 100% tonight, but Giannis kind of got whatever he wanted out there, especially in the first half. So where do you think Giannis is in terms of like 100% being the best? And what did you see from Giannis tonight?
I'd say he was about like an 80
something
80, yeah, like somewhere between 80 and 85%,
which is really damn good.
Well, yeah, I mean that's not bad. Of course, you know, probably could have done a little bit more. Seemed like when he started off the game, you know, he was, you know, not afraid to drive to the basket or go where he wanted. I think as the game went on, maybe a little fatigue, and that's probably just not even more so the injury. It's more just he hasn't played a game in about a week or so.
I noticed that too. I felt like it was kind of like the first half, and then he just kind of slowed down in the second half. I agree with you.
So I think maybe that might be it. Maybe, I mean, they're going to have tomorrow. I don't know if he's just going to get like another day to rest or something, or maybe he'll get like some more reps with like conditioning or something. Because he might need that just to, you know, feel himself a little bit better next game.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think you pretty much summed it up there. And you know, we saw what like Chris Paul looked like when he was even at like 75% or 70. It's pretty damn good when players are over 50%. And you know, we'll see what happens with Giannis. But speaking of Giannis, he finished the game 35 minutes tonight, 6 for 11 from the field, had 7 free throws, 17 rebounds and 20 points. But we all know Giannis can be better. He had, you know, he did have 5 fouls, 3 turnovers. And really, it's like, I'll tell you this, if he didn't play and the stat sheet was the same and the final score was the same, I think the Suns would have just ran away with this one. And there was a point where the Suns were looking like they were going to run away from it. The Bucks kind of went on a couple different runs here and there. I remember in particular, I think I got it in my notes here. They were just hitting a couple of threes to save them from the blowout, but it was really Chris Paul's huge third quarter that kind of saved them. By the way, Super Mario Hoops, I don't know if you saw this. Chris Paul revealed that he had like some like hand injury. I'm totally blanking on what it was. And then during the game, they were kind of like looking at it. They interviewed Monty Williams, and he said, and I quote, "He has a sore hand, but I think he'll be okay." And he said that during that long Chris Paul third quarter stretch. And you know, let's be real, man. The Suns don't win this game if it wasn't without Chris Paul, because he was fantastic. 37 minutes, 12 for 19 from the field, 32 points, 9 assists. What did you see from the point guard?
I mean, just about everything. Like we said, he got off to a rough start, but a lot of that I think is just your first finals.
I'm glad you brought that up. I really am.
And I think it's not just like it's his first finals, but more people, even though like Giannis currently is probably the best player in the series, you know, more people have eyes on Chris Paul because this is, I think more people are thinking, you know,
because he's a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, we don't know, because there were a lot of teams that were injured this year. So we don't know if the Suns get back there next year or not. I think that they'll be a great team for several years to come. They very well could win
Amen,
again,
brother.
like with Booker, Ayton, and stuff. But of course, Chris Paul, like, he's getting older, and he doesn't like fit the timeline with those guys forever. So he might not be there for several years. So it's like, this might be the last chance. And in terms of like what you said with the hand injury, I don't think it's going to bug him at all. I think he learned probably from 2018 when he sat out with the hamstring against the Warriors. He probably has learned, like, you know what? I don't care if I break my hand. I don't care if I break my leg. I don't care if I'm, bent in half by the end of it. I'm going to go out there, go for the championship, and then whatever happens, happens.
I'm glad that you brought up two things. I'm glad that you brought up that Chris Paul kind of got off to a slow start, which I noticed it, but it wasn't like a huge red flag. And then obviously he had that like dominant third quarter. I think he was pretty good in the second quarter too. And the Suns were up at halftime. But I'm also glad you brought up the whole injury thing, because the mentality of this team, this might even kind of go back to the bubble before we even had Chris Paul, is that, Devin Booker hates sitting out games. Chris Paul said, and I quote, like, I don't think I can ever retire because I'm one of the most competitive people ever. And it's true. Like, these guys hate missing games. They love playing with and for each other. And I think tonight and really throughout the entire playoffs, that has shown. Like, the whole Chris Paul getting COVID thing must have killed him on the inside, because, like, who knows what that Clippers series would have looked like if he would have, been able to play all those games. And by the way, Suns haters, we were 2-0 with Chris Paul out, I think, during that Clippers series. So just remember that, Suns fans, or Suns haters. I'm sorry. But David asked an interesting question. I think it's an interesting question. Shout out to David. He's always in the comments section and in these live streams. Awesome profile picture, by the way. He says, Suns had 5 days rest, which is a lot longer than it seems in today's NBA game. Bucks had 2. Do you think that was an advantage for us? And by the way, eventually during the finals, there's going to be a 2-day break rather than 1. What do you think about the whole, like, days off? Like, do you think it was an advantage for the Suns?
I mean, usually when it comes to this thing, it depends just how the team responds. I mean, there's always going to be those stats where it's like, these teams are so-and-so in back-to-backs. These teams are so-and-so on this day at this time. Like, I think they were talking a lot about the Clippers and how they were horrible at, like, afternoon Sunday games, which this is like a weird stat. But I guess, like, on the point of rest, I mean, the Bucks really haven't had, like, a decent amount of rest ever since, like, they beat the Heat, and even then they didn't get, like, too much, because their opponent, the Nets, beat the Boston in 5 games. So, and then, like, they played a 7-game series, they played a 6-game series. Meanwhile, the Suns, they win at the harder one in the first round with the Lakers in 6. Then they got a lot of rest in the Nuggets series. And we just talked about Chris Paul. He got even additional rest because of COVID.
Yep,
so
exactly.
I think that it's kind of shown that they're a team that can benefit a lot with rest. The Bucks, I don't really know if they would anyways, though, because, like, when they played the Nets, they started off slow that series. They were down 0-2. Even one game, I think they got blown out by 40. So it's tough, but I think the Suns definitely benefit from it. And, I mean, they just came out as the better team today, so it definitely has helped them so far. Yeah,
and, look, like, as confident and as excited and happy as I am for the Phoenix Suns, I know the Bucks are going to respond. But hopefully game 2, the Suns just respond better. I feel like this is going to be kind of a boxing match. There's going to be a lot of, responses to each other and, metaphorically punches thrown and all that. And it's going to be a great finals, man. I think that this was just a small preview, and just it feels so real. Like, like as the days approached today, I was just like, man, like the Suns are actually in the finals. And when I woke up this morning, I'm like, we're going to be watching the Phoenix Suns in the finals. It's just absolutely incredible, man. if you guys are still in the chat, thank you to everybody who's watching, by the way. Make sure to go ahead and ask us a question. You guys have been great about leaving comments and asking your questions and all that. I don't really know if there's anything else much to talk about. I will say this, though. I don't know how ESPN dug up this stat. Now they're 12-0 when this happens, but they said that the Suns are 12-0 in the postseason when they lead by 10-plus points. That's absolutely insane. I don't even know why I brought that up. I just thought that it was crazy. But yeah, guys, go ahead, ask your questions in the chat. I'm gonna kind of go over some numbers real quick. Both teams shot 45% or better tonight. The Bucks shot 45%. The Suns shot 46%. Bucks had 16 threes. Suns only had 11. So again, when both teams start nailing threes, we might be seeing a whole different ball game. I'll just say that. Because the Bucks are a pretty good 3-point shooting team, and the Suns win a lot of games when they hit their threes. And I mentioned this earlier. The Suns only missed one free throw tonight. They shot 96% from the free throw line. Bucks won the rebounding battle 47-43. Both teams assisted the. What?
I don't know what's going on.
It's okay, man. Technical difficulties. Both teams assisted well tonight, though. You look funny on the camera. 21 assists for the Bucks, 18 for the Suns. Let's go ahead and go to the chat here. Let's see what the chat's saying. Oh yeah, I think someone brought the stat up earlier. It might have been David. He said we are 4-0 in Game 1 of the NBA playoffs. That's insane. Shout out to my man Sawbucks 23. You can go to audio only if you want. But my man Sawbucks says same game plan, Suns, protect home court exactly and try to steal at least one away game. Bucks were lucky that Dario got hurt since they would have gotten blown out. Dario Saric, the Suns' X factor. Matt says honestly, my biggest relief this game was just that moment. Really didn't seem too big for us with how young we are. Exactly. You still there, Super Mario Hoops?
I am. I'm trying to take a little picture here.
No, it's all good. I agree with what Matt said, man. He just said, honestly, my biggest relief from this game was just that moment. Really didn't seem too big for us. Like, they didn't seem nervous. All this whole Suns don't have playoff experience. I don't think that matters, especially this year. And that's a good thing because these guys are learning. And this is going to just do so much for the Suns' future, like Devin Booker and Ayton and Bridges and all them. And just all this playoff experience is going to be great, man.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of just hit it right there.
Mm-hmm. By the way, if you guys didn't know, Super Mario Hoops is the biggest Derrick Rose fan you'll ever meet in your life.
Got him showing right here.
Have you ever met Derrick Rose, by the way?
I never have, but if I do, then it's like that'll be like the finale of like my NBA journey or whatever. That'll like when I meet him, that's when I'll know I've made it.
You're like, I can just go to heaven now, my time here is done.
That's the one priority. It's gotta happen.
My man, a burner account says, man, the Suns are in the finals. The only thing that can make this better is if Geek could tuck me in. This guy, he's always in my live streams. He's in other people's live streams, and he leaves hilarious comments like that. Oh, man. Yeah, Olivia, thank you for bringing this up. I can't believe we didn't talk about this. I thought it was hilarious that the Suns crowd, it sounded like a college game crowd, that they were just trolling him at the free throw line. The 1, 2. Now, they were counting a little fast, but do you have any thoughts on the heckling?
Yeah, you know what, though? Like, yeah, they were obviously counting fast. Every single team, Atlanta, Brooklyn, Miami, they've all counted fast.
I didn't know they were doing that. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, they've been going at it like every round for him. Right. But I think the thing is, even though they count fast, it might throw him off a little bit because he knows they're counting fast, but once it gets to like 8, 9, 10, then you're like, well, I don't know, like I gotta release it sometime soon, And then
you gotta think maybe that might take a mental toll on him too, and maybe
it might. I mean, after I think he started off like 3 for 6, so he finished like 4 for 6 in his last few. just, I mean, that's good, I guess, for Giannis, but still, like, I could be like mind games going on there.
AZ Sports Guy says the Suns have won every game. Suns have won every series that they've won the first game during this playoff so far. Wow, that's awesome. Let me see here. I saw another good one. A burner account says, "Really? Series. Imagine not being a fan of Sticks." Shaking my head. Sticks, aka Jalen Smith, the Rookie of the Year. Daniel says, my biggest relief was seeing Paul get up after the I can't believe we didn't even talk about that. My biggest relief was seeing Paul get up after the Lopez closed out on him when he took that three. Looked worse than it was, but super glad it was nothing too serious. Knock on wood. 2 questions here, Super Mario. What did you see from that little, the Lopez closeout and Paul kind of tweaking his ankle? And what are your thoughts? Like, I don't even know if I can touch that subject of the whole leg kick out and all that. Like, what are your thoughts? You got any thoughts on that?
Well, to be honest, I saw the play twice. The first time I thought he just like made body contact or something.
Exactly, me too.
And then the second time I saw like where Chris Paul appeared on his foot. And I don't know if it was like intentional, but all I will say is it was just funny how they had that clip ready to go with Kawhi and Zaza from like years back.
The NBA is staged.
Like, can you imagine being Zaza Pachulia? You're just chilling at home watching the finals, and then it's like, oh, come on, man. They're just gonna. He was trending on Twitter today because of that. Like, that's gotta suck. Like, he has no part in this at all, and then you just see him trending for all the wrong reasons, and he's just chilling,
dude. I remember Zaza Pachulia, and I think the same thing happened this year with Alex Caruso. He like made the NBA All-Star voting list or something like that. When the first rounds came out, I was just like, that's just the fans being trolls, man. But Zaza, man, Game 7, baby, we're going to Game 7.
I mean, he's why it all got changed. And then the next year after, my guy in the picture here was, I mean, we were talking about this, I think yesterday. He was top 2 in voting. Yep. Very well could have made it. Obviously, there's probably other people more deserving, but I would have liked to seen it. But that was Zaza that like got that whole thing changed because they're like, come on, this guy's not an all-star.
I will say, though, Booker got called for a foul. He had a nice 3. I think it was a 3. And I guess his leg went a little too high, and they like called a foul on Booker. There were a few times during this game, too, where like if it was like a Booker 3 or a Bridges 3 that would have went in, this game just would have been over with. I just think the Suns are just super motivated, man. I think they're excited. I'm so glad they won Game 1. I think I would have I don't even know if disappointed would have been the word if the Suns would have lost this game, but I would have kind of come down from my like cloud 9, Suns hype and all that if they would have lost Game 1. And we'd obviously be having a completely different conversation. So glad they won. Not to sound too cocky, but again, I didn't really feel threatened throughout most of this game, especially after we took that 20-point lead. And, a burner account says, my greatest joy of this playoffs is that the media is forced to look at, quote, small market teams. Exactly. And you know what? All the social media trolls can say what they want, but I'm glad this is happening, man. I mean, even during the playoffs, we saw like Jason Tatum and Trae Young, who, we could talk about him if he's becoming like a true superstar. And, Giannis, he's won 2 MVPs, man. Like, and Chris Middleton's a great player. I think Chris Middleton, we didn't even talk about Chris Middleton, man. I thought he played great tonight. And, a burner's right. Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, man, they're so much publicity and media views, and it's great, man. I'm just so glad that, the NBA, it changes fast, like the Warriors were dominating for years and LeBron was on the Cavs and the Lakers and all. It's like, man, I'm just so glad that new team, you talked about this yesterday, that like new teams are in the NBA finals,
Yeah. I mean, it's something good to see. Obviously, being that I'm a Bulls fan and like we're usually a pretty big market, I'd like to see us make some success once in a while.
Right.
But I mean, if it's not going to be us, then I want to see the teams usually that haven't done much in their history. Like, we've seen the Lakers with like they had Magic, they had the Kobe era,
the Showtime era.
So, like they just have
even
such
before Showtime, they were like dominating.
yeah, and they had such a big history that's like, you know, and I know people. There's a lot of LeBron fans, probably also a lot of LeBron haters. And then like AD, these are all box office players, and I know some people do like that, but personally for me, I feel like the teams that are smaller markets, the players that don't really get talked about, and I think you said it a lot, like with Trae Young there, he was kind of becoming like the villain of the playoffs, and it was weird though, because like he was the villain of the playoffs, but I was like rooting for him, you know.
And I actually really like Trae Young. I'll be real with you. I do.
And like I never hated him. I mean, he went up against D Rose, and like when the Hawks won, I'm like, you know what? Like I'm not like against him. Like it was kind of cool to see. And then, you know, same thing against the 76ers series. Like he's good, and these other guys like Tatum, Mitchell, obviously Booker, you know, and then we'll start to see it too down the line with maybe guys like Zion. We saw it with Luka too this year. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. And you know, somebody, it was, I don't even know what that name says, but somebody said Trae Young set the league on fire this playoffs. Can't wait to see the young stars take over. And, you know, I know it's only been one playoff series and one finals series and all that, but you know, it's happening, and it's happening fast. And I love it. I'm a fan of like success stories. You know, shout out to the Atlanta Hawks. They had a great run. And you know, shout out to Nate McMillan, man. I mean, he did a great job taking over that team. They needed a new voice in that locker room, and it clearly showed because they put up a great record after he took over, and now he's their head coach for the foreseeable future. And you know, they're not getting rid of Young, and John Collins is probably going to stay there for a long time. And you know, we haven't even talked about players like Zion and just so many players, man. But you know, right now, this is the Suns moment, and shout out to Giannis too. This is Giannis's moment, and Chris Middleton too. Somebody said it like on an article. They were like, the casual fan will now know who Chris Middleton is because he's going to the Olympics too. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome to see. You know, Nick Wright says the Suns are dangerous. I think if the Suns win the series, I got CP3 winning the finals MVP.
We got Nick Wright in here.
Yeah. I hope it's not the same Nick Wright that what did he I don't even know.
Nah, just take it too realistic for it to be Nick Wright.
Exactly. Somebody asked about the officiating, which has been a controversial topic among Suns fans. I have a good video on my channel where shout out to John from the Suns Jam Session podcast. He just goes on this rant about the officiating, and I 100% agreed with him. What did you see out of the officials tonight? Do you think it was fair calling for the most part?
Personally, I just feel like the refs most of the playoffs have not been too fair to many teams. Like, see, they might make a bad call in favor of, and I mean, it happened on both sides today, but they'll make a bad call in favor of something, and then they'll make, you know, like a makeup call or something like that. Like, I think there were like back-to-back offensive fouls. There was, you know, one where it was like a turnover and they didn't call anything, and then they gave Booker the foul call, like on that one bank shot or something. So, like, it just – I don't like when they do that. They're like, just call the game normally. Yeah, it just seems like kind of sketch when they try and, like, oh, like, you know, you were probably right there. We're not going to review it because you only have one challenge. And that's another thing I hate. I hate the challenge rule so much in the NBA.
It slows the game down. You're right.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't have a problem with that, but the rule should be like they get one challenge, and then if they lose the challenge, they lose their timeout. But if you win that challenge, you should be able to keep that challenge further on to use again and the timeout. Because it's not fair if okay, we got like this challenge right, but now something else screws us later in the game and we can't review it. Like, that's kind of dumb, in my opinion.
Well, the last time Hitman X was on the show, he kind of made a good point. He basically just said, you know what, like, yeah, the refs suck, blah, 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 but he's like, you got to play through the whistle. And he's right. He kind of made me like think about that more. Like, unfortunately, you just got to play through the whistle. Hopefully that's the Suns mentality, you know, in the finals and going forward, you know, because the Suns, there's so many times where like Ayton doesn't get called for a foul and he puts his hands up in the air and he's like, "Oh, come on, I didn't get that call." And Booker always barking at the refs, sometimes a little too much. And but I will say, you know, sometimes the refs do have it out for the Suns. It's pretty bad. Sometimes it's pretty obvious. I think in the Nuggets series, Cameron Johnson literally set a screen and got called for a foul, and I was pissed. Like, I put it on Twitter and everything. I was pissed, man. Like, just little shit like that, man. Excuse my language, but yeah, the referees, man. Hopefully they're good to us in the NBA Finals. So yeah, I mean, Olivia says it perfect, you know. And I was talking about this earlier. Phoenix Suns need a ring. It's been 53 years. I just feel like there's something special about this team, man, and it's like a storybook. And this would just be an incredible finish to that book if the Suns won the NBA Finals. You got anything else you want to talk about, man? I feel like it's kind of free time now. I mean, anything on your mind? Anything you want to rant about?
I mean, not really. I mean, just when we were talking about the refs and stuff, I know they want to keep the game like going and stuff like that, but
they have the hardest job in the world. But you know,
that's true. But it's like you got to think about like what they're making as well, and usually, like you're telling me they don't want to like ref another 30 minutes or so, like stopping calls. That would probably give them more opportunity for break, anyways.
Right.
So I don't know, and like they probably just want to get home, whatever. But I feel like they should just change that challenge rule. Make it so you get one challenge. If you get it wrong, you lose the challenge and your timeout. But if you get it right, you keep it. And then, like, you won't get screwed later on.
Or, you know, you could just listen to a burner account who says, "I propose a rule change. If the coach wants a challenge, they got to fight the refs 1v1. If the coach wins, it gets overturned. If they lose, they get a tech." You know what, Burner? You should just be the commissioner of the NBA, man, because I think the Phoenix Suns would have won multiple titles if that was the case. You know, shout out to a Burner account. And shout out to Coda Kid, man. You know, Coda Kid's been here long time on my channel. He's a true fan. And he says, "What's up, geek? Was watching the Suns Jam Session podcast." Shout out to them, man. They've been grinding every single playoff game. I wish I had their mentality, but I don't. But yeah, you guys, I think that's it. I think we've basically talked about everything, man. Shout out to my boy Angel too, Valley Boys, man. And you know what, guys? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to Hulk smash that like button. Once again, after the show, I'll make sure to link Super Mario Hoops, my guest here. All of his information will be in the description, and Hitman X. I'm sure we'll get him back on because I think us three would be a nice little duo or trio that we got going here. And
the big three.
Yeah, the big three, man. I think it'd be good.
Chris Paul, Book, and Ayton.
And yeah, Super Mario Hoops, man, you are welcome back on at any time. And I know that you got your own life going on. And you got your own channel. Make sure to check out Super Mario Hoops, by the way, you guys. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys after game 2. And the Phoenix Suns are 3 wins away from an NBA championship. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hulk smash that like button. Please subscribe for everything Phoenix Suns. If it has to deal with the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to make a video about it. And I'll see you guys next time.